All right, brand new intro video. Welcome in everybody to Fish Stripes Live. It is your boy Ethan Badowski hanging out here with Isaac Azut. Going to be previewing the Marlins and Braves series, a big division series for the Marlins. The first time that they've seen the Braves in a while, and as always, this is always a big series for the Marlins. Don Mattingly mentioned it before the game, how they always view the Braves as the measuring stick, being the defending division champions for about, I think, 3 years running now. So this is obviously a huge series for the Marlins, coming off 2 of 3 from taking 2 of 3 from the struggling Colorado Rockies, which is where we're going to actually start today, Isaac. So I was at one of the games, you were at one of the games, and then last night we obviously saw what the offense did. So just jumping right into it here, starting with the Rockies series, what were your key takeaways from what we saw from the Marlins as they finally got some offense and they beat up on a team that they should be beating up on?
Right, exactly. I think they played the way we figured they'd play against the Pirates, but at home, I think you saw Duvall come out. He's starting one of those streaks that we know he's capable of, and when he's doing that, he can really carry the offense. We saw the pitching pitch very well. Braxton had okay stuff in the game I was at. Could have pitched better. He'll tell you that himself. And then last night, the game that you were at, Trevor Rogers pitched. Like he has all year. That's another start where he has not given up more than 3 runs. The offense started right in the second inning. They blew the game wide open, 6 runs in the second. Jazz Chisholm, 3 home runs, and it was that's like the peak of how this team can be, and hopefully it'll be consistent, and we'll see if it carries over to this series.
Yeah, definitely a peek at what the offense can be when it's kicking. You know what I mean? You get Marte, Jazz, Duvall all hitting a home run in that 6th inning, or in that second inning, a 6-run second inning, which really, they were never looking back after that one. I mean, they really beat up on Chichi Gonzalez, the poor guy, but that was, what we should be seeing from the Marlins. If the Marlins want to prove that they're an advancing team, a team moving up in the ranks in Major League Baseball, then that's a team that they should be beating up on. It was obviously disappointing to see them not do the same thing to the Pittsburgh Pirates before, but it was nice to see them do it to the Rockies here. And you mentioned Duvall. I mean, it's so weird with him. He has the 2 homers last night, but he's got in this hot streak he's on. So in his last 4 games, he's 6 for 18, but he also has a 44% strikeout rate. So, he's doing a lot of good. And this has kind of been the story of his year, right? Is he does a lot of good. He produces a lot of runs. He drives runs in, he hits a ton of long ball. I think he's over 10 already. Mm-hmm. But he strikes out all the time. So it's like, how do you view his season so far? And then we obviously know that he's streaky and his streaks are really good when he gets hot. But, how can a lineup handle a guy being that streaky when he's such a big part of it?
Yeah, it's definitely tough. It's not exactly Stanton-esque, because I don't know if he's doing enough of the power to compensate for the swing and miss in the game. For example, the game that I was at, he had a home run, a big home run, to make it a 1-run ball game. But in the 2 previous at-bats, he struck out in critical spots, and where just any sort of contact would have helped out. Mm-hmm. But that's just the type of player Duvall's always been. Low OBP kind of guy, but high slugging, and so his OPS is always be around low 8, maybe 800. But this year, it's about at 672, so he obviously wants to see that go up. But like you said, he is a streaky guy, and right now when he is hitting the long ball, it is okay. But when he's not hitting the long ball, it'll be bad. But the Braves are coming into town. I feel like he's gonna have a great series against his former team in Atlanta.
He loves hitting against those Braves. We're not in Atlanta, but I know he still does love hitting.
Oh yeah, and obviously when it comes to Duvall, he's one of the few guys where the ballpark does not matter. He'll hit it out wherever. And like you said about Marte and Jazz, it's a really fun 1-2 combination at the top of the lineup. Lefty, righty, both power, both speed. It's a very fun. I hope they, that's another topic, but I hope that's there for a long time.
Yeah, I want to go into that in a second. But the first thing is just somebody in the chat is asking where Eli is. Eli is on the 1s and 2s right now. He's on the decks behind the scenes. He's doing all the behind the scenes stuff. There he is in the corner.
I'm alive.
He is here. He's not lost. He is here. But just wanted to let everybody know on that. And then the thing you mentioned about, Duvall and G, kind of like I was talking to my brother about Duvall last night, just how streaky he is. And I said, he produces, runs and stuff, but he strikes out way too much. And my brother actually said, so like Giancarlo Stanton. And I was like, well, not quite, because G is a 270 lifetime hitter, whereas Duvall is a 230 lifetime hitter. So you can see where if he just hit a little more, if he just made a little more contact, just put the ball in play a little more, maybe took some more walks, the type of player that he could be. But this is what the Marlins get from him with the way that he hits right now. And then the thing I wanted to go into before we move into this series is just Jazz, Marte, and Aguilar, these three guys at the top of the order. And Dickerson actually had a pretty nice series too, coming up with some big hits. But those three guys at the top of the order right now, the Marlins they're all healthy, so they finally found a top three. I wrote about Jazz this morning, but what did you see from them in this series that, they're really breaking out, and it shows the potential that the Marlins offense has, where they thought they could be able to rely on these three guys?
Yeah, well, one more thing on Duvall. I think, Eli sent out a tweet with a crazy stat that in 2020 against breaking balls, he was hitting insanely well. And this year it's just taken a insane downturn. But back to Jazz, he was in a little bit of a slump, like I think people were noticing, and he's really able, which is beautiful to see. It's great to see that he's able to come out of it at his young age in his rookie season and make adjustments the way he has. And, it really was great to see from him. Marte is always going to hit. So it's nice to see it from those three guys for sure.
Well, we're welcoming Alex Carver now. And Alex, we're simply just wrapping up the Rockies series before we get started on the Braves series here. So just the one thing I guess I'll ask you is your biggest takeaway from what we saw with the Marlins finally beating up on a team that, they should be beating up on.
Yeah, man. And I don't think this can be overstated. It's the Miggy factor for me, man. Like, the guy's back in the dugout, he's with his teammates, he's helping coach on the bench. Like, I'll say it 10,000 times over, and I have a full-length article coming out that will explain it more in depth soon. But this guy just what he gives this organization, man, is insurmountable. There's nothing he doesn't do. When he's not with the team, he's in Jupiter catching out the hammerheads. He just stays around the team all the time, stays involved, vocal leader. That's a big factor in what they were able to do on that road trip. What was it like? They scored like 20 runs or something, and then in these 3 games alone, they scored like 25. It's something around those numbers, maybe if not exactly, but it's near that. So yeah, I think he got in their faces, man. I think he said, let's get going, guys. This is a team we should beat, and they did it. So yeah, take 2 out of 3. You'd like to see it.
Well, this is another series that can definitely get the Marlins going now, because they're always juiced up to play Atlanta. We saw what they did when they went to Atlanta earlier this year and how fired up they look, taking 3 of 4 from Atlanta. And let's talk about the Braves as they head into – okay, before we move on, can we get some reactions to Jazz's legendary pimp job? That reminded me a lot. I don't know if you guys remember this one, but Anthony Rizzo had a similar pimp job in the 2016 World Series. He hit one in Game 6, and it just looked like that, where he just held the bat, let it go. But that kind of flair, Mattingly mentioned how guys love playing with that kind of flair, and I know that Mattingly, even though he's an old-timey guy, loves that kind of stuff. So when was the last time we had a guy like that? Maybe G even didn't really pimp like some of his home runs. When did we have a guy that brought this kind of excitement? It's the Jazz factor, isn't it?
Yeah, Adeiny Echeverria liked to flip his bat a lot, but he didn't hit it out as much. But honestly, yeah, Giancarlo just had that, like, he didn't ever flip the bat the way he, unless it was off. I forgot the guy in Texas where he really pimped that one.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
But no, G just had that subtle, like, when he hit it out, he knew it was out, and that was about it. But that pimp job, the Acuñas, they throw the bat halfway up and in the air. Jazz is subtle. I think that's the way to go. I think it's a very good look.
Just launch it.
Yeah.
Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, man. He said it after the game. I think Christina asked him, and he said after the game, I don't really do that, but it was just in the moment. And I'm kind of like that too. Like Donnie, I'm kind of an old timey guy. If I was a player, I wouldn't want to show up the opponent. I know the argument. Yeah, you got the best of them, and pitchers normally don't care. Most pitchers don't care. Hey, you got me, do what you want. But man, I think it's just a sportsmanship thing that it's more like, just take your bases and act professional. Act like you've been there before. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like, I know it's coming back in the game a lot, but that's just my opinion on it. Does it look cool? Sure, but the attitude behind it, it's whatever. Jazz won't do that a lot, I don't think.
It was interesting to me to hear Jazz say that that's not really him, because he does play with that flair and that excitement, but I guess he does kind of bring it in a different way. But that was certainly a big home run. Certainly it definitely felt good for him with the adjustments that he's been making. He talked to us about that and wrote about that earlier, and just how he's been adjusting. And I'm sure that one felt really, really good for him to just kind of get inside, shorten up, and he crushed that ball. It's the longest home run in Lone Depot Park this year. So anyway, moving on to the going forward into this series now, the Marlins have a weekend set with the Braves, and the Braves, really, it's been a disappointing year for them so far. They're sitting at 29-31. They're 4 games back of the Mets and they're in third place in the National League East. They have a -1 run differential. So the Marlins have a six run advantage and run differential on them. The Marlins, I saw, are +5 today. They're coming off losing 2 of 3 to the Phillies. They got walked off on in both of those losses the last 2 nights. So that's pretty brutal. They've got I'm sure they have some anger coming into this one. They're not very hot right now. They haven't been really hot all year, but a guy that has been hot all year, and it's a guy that you have to talk about every time that the Braves are on order, are in every time you see the Braves. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Is Ronald Acuna Jr. Obviously, he's got a 989 OPS this year. He's got 163 weighted runs created plus. He's just having a outstanding year. MVP candidate. There's not much else that you can really say about this guy. The pitching hasn't been great. You look at a 4.37 team ERA. That's the 11th worst in baseball. Only 3.9 pitching WAR. That's 22nd in baseball. So not really a great pitching staff. And then their league, their lineup is about league average, 102 weighted runs created plus, the 12th best in baseball. So when you look at this Braves team, what's gone wrong with them this year? I can't really say that I keep up with them too much. I keep an eye on what they're doing because they're in the Marlins division, but they were they were obviously the favorite, and Mattingly talks about how they're the measuring stick in the division because they win the division every year pretty much. So obviously the Mets have really kind of taken a hold on this division recently, but what's gone wrong with Atlanta? Has it been them missing Soroka? Like what do you guys see from them that everything hasn't really hit they haven't hit their stride this year?
Well, I think you touched on it right away. It's the pitching mostly. I know they lost Ozuna, but it's the pitching, man. Charlie Morton, he's pitched okay. He has like a 4.21 ERA, but they are 4-1 in his last 5 starts. But you have Drew Smiley, who is just there to eat up innings. You have Max Fried, who was their most successful pitcher last year. He's not having the same year that he has. Ian Anderson, Mike Soroka hasn't been back. They're also down a lot, just like a lot of teams are. So I would say it definitely goes to the pitching. They signed Shane Green back because that bullpen wasn't performing as well as it should have been either. But yeah, no, it's with them down. That's how I see the Marlins have a chance at this division. But the Mets are grabbing it a bit, but it's definitely the pitching for the Braves that's that's faulting them.
I think it's a good bullpen at all ever recently. It feels like every year I hear Braves fans complaining about the bullpen.
I thought last year was pretty good.
It was pretty solid last year. They had Melanson and guys like that. But what were you going to say, Alex? Sorry for interrupting.
No, I just to piggyback off what Isaac said. I think it's injuries and stupidity. I mean, you look at what Marcelo Ozuna does. Nothing else needs to be said about that. I think that guy should be out of baseball for the rest of his career, and I think he probably will be because I don't think Atlanta's organization is going to put up with it. And then you look at Huascar Noah, who was doing really well for them, and he punches something in the dugout and breaks his hand. So just undisciplined. Between those two guys, it's very undisciplined. And then they're also missing Travis d'Arnaud, who's injured. Orlando Arcia is injured. So it's just piling up. But in terms of how the Marlins injuries piled up, they were unavoidable on the players' part. A little bit on this Braves front, the injuries and I guess suspensions that they've gone through, it's avoidable stuff. So I just think it's an undisciplined team that just gets into some bad situations, obviously. They've, like we said, they're kind of trying to patch it together. It's always going to be a team that's there to compete with, just based off of what they have in guys like Albies and Acuna and Freeman. And, you have guys like that on your team. That's your core. You're probably will be in it most years. So yeah, it goes back to what Donnie says about being the black and blue division, where I've said this before, we're seeing that literally this year with injuries. So, they're all going to beat up on each other, but they're going to do it while they're also beat up from all of these injuries that are happening. So Yeah. Does it give us a chance to overtake them? Maybe. In the current state of the Marlins, I would say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Freddie Freeman because this is a guy that's kind of having a weird year, like, coming off an MVP season, and he's striking out at a much higher rate than he did last season, almost more than 3.5 points. His strikeout percentage is higher than last year. He had 187 weighted runs created plus, obviously in a shortened season last year, but he has 115 this year, 797 OPS. So he's having an above league average year. I mean, league average this year is 710. So he's, but we all know the hitting problems that are happening, the offensive problems around baseball this year. But a guy that isn't hitting like we expect him to, he has to get going eventually, right? And he always seems to get going against the Marlins. I mean, this guy seems to just be a Marlin killer. But you're looking at Freddie Freeman and, 115 weighted runs created plus. That's that's a good baseball player, but that's not the Freddie Freeman we're used to seeing, is it?
No, not with the 228 batting average. I know the OPS is at 800, but you're not used to seeing Freddie Freeman pull up into Miami in mid-June with a 228 batting average. He didn't get going too much in the first series in Atlanta. But you know what? With Freeman struggling a bit, by his standards struggling, and Ozuna not in there, Acuna doing what he always does, unfortunately, it's a winnable series. This one, the Braves team is not performing. This was a team that I was like, they're for sure going to win the division, no doubt about it. But they haven't performed up to expectations. And Alex talked about the stupidity of Ynoa, who was literally their best starter. And just when you're a pitcher, you have to learn. I think I was listening to David Sampson's podcast about it. You can't, you get so angry when a pitcher does anything with his pitching hand, and with those Zunas, they're not helping themselves either. So it's hard to feel bad.
Well, pulled an Amari Stoudemire. I don't know if you guys remember Amari Stoudemire in the Knicks Heat series one year when he punched a fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
Anyway, with Freeman, you got to think that he's a guy that just gets going eventually. I mean, he's a 292 lifetime hitter. Hold on, let me pull this career 888 OPS guy. So, he's going to get going eventually. And with the Braves as well, I kind of see them as a team, everybody's kind of counting them out saying, okay, the Mets are the favorite now. The Braves, when are they? It's June already, but there's still plenty of time for them to get going. Guys will, get going after the All-Star. They'll get going after teams will get going after the All-Star break. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you're just waiting for them to break out. You mentioned Acuna, a great year. He's has the best weighted runs created plus of his career, 836 OPS. We know that this guy is super talented, obviously. So it's not like their guys aren't performing. They've had William Contreras come in for d'Arnaud, and he's been great. The brother of Wilson Contreras. So he's also a catcher. So there's still so much talent on this team that you just kind of think eventually they have to get going. But the one thing I wanted to talk about with you guys, getting back to, onto the Marlins side now, is how they match up with the Braves, because we saw them take 3 or 4 earlier this year from the Braves, and they made it look pretty easy. They really, they had a chance to sweep. They won the first 3 games in that series, and then they had a chance to sweep, and they looked really good. They looked like they could really match up with the Braves in that series. Where do you guys kind of see them matching up? Now obviously we know about the injuries, but when you have Jazz hot, Aguilar hot, Marte hot, Duvall hitting better, Dickerson's come up with some big hits recently, and then you get to send Sandy and Pablo out there in this series. All of a sudden you're looking at a series, you got two of your guys going, and I saw somebody tweet out today that we've won 3 of 5. And the 3 have been Sandy's start, Trevor's start, and Pablo's start. So when you look at that, we know that the Marlins have the 3 right now, and they had 4 and 5, and 4 and 5 went down, but the 3 have been great all year. So where do you guys see right now? Kind of obviously the Braves, the Marlins are only a few games back of them. Where do you kind of see these teams matching up, and do you think that the Marlins can give them another run for their money in this series like they did last time?
Well, yeah, I definitely think so. With one thing I was surprised about was Christian Pache, not performing the way we thought he'd perform in the playoffs last year. I think that was that's a heavy hit for them. And Austin Riley, you can pitch to him. I'm looking at the lineups for tonight, and William Contreras, Abraham Almonte, the bottom 6, 7, 8, it's pitchable. And I think it's like Kim Ng said, we're gonna have to rely on Sandy. Where these guys, you have Isan Diaz hitting 6th, which John Birdie hitting 8. But you have, like you said, Alfaro's hitting the ball well. Duvall seems to be in the midst of one of those streaks. Dickerson, I think we favor really nicely actually for this series. And you have Pablo and Sandy. We'll see who starts tomorrow. I don't know if there's any word on that yet. But I think it could be a favorable matchup for us. I think Drew. Oh no, we're not gonna get Drew Smiley.
No, we do get Smiley pitches on Sunday against Pablo.
Oh, that's right. He pitched on Tuesday. Perfect.
Yeah, it's Morton, Fried, and Smiley. Right. And then, Donnie said today that tomorrow's starter will probably depend on how tonight goes, depending on how much of the bullpen they have to use.
And we all know what happened the last time we faced Fried. It was in the playoffs, and we hit it pretty well. So it should be fun. I know we don't play well against the lefties, but.
We got to Morton. They got to Morton last time. Yep. Jazz took Morton deep.
Center.
Yep. So Alex, what are your thoughts on kind of where the Marlins are matching up with the Braves right now?
Yeah, I think you guys hit it pretty well. Starting pitching, even though we only have 3 in this series, what we're facing, we're facing Morton and Smiley has been horrible. And Morton, as you guys said, we've done pretty well against him. I would say the game that you don't like is tomorrow, just because of the uncertainty. I think they probably will go bullpen again just because of what's happening in the minors. I don't think Casano would be ready to go. We know Neidert is doing bullpens. He's still hurt. So who else is there? Unless you make a 40-man move, there's not much. So I'm thinking they probably go bullpen game tomorrow. I'm not sure why. Donnie's never really that upfront the day before with that kind of stuff because he doesn't want to give up too much to the opposite team, right? So, he's usually that, we'll see what happens tonight. But I'm pretty certain it's probably going to be bullpen. So tomorrow I worry. We'll see how the offense does these other 2 games. I think they're both winnable. The other 2 games are both winnable, especially like you said, Ethan, with Jazz going good, bunch of homers last night, Aggie's hitting, Duvall's hitting. So, I think it's a winnable series at home for sure.
How cool would it be if they delayed Edwards' start today for tomorrow to be at Marlins Park? Obviously.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's so much thinking there.
I put this on Twitter. He's actually not starting tonight. He's not starting in Jupiter tonight. I don't know. I know there was back and forth between that. The Marlins were saying one thing and the Hammerheads were saying something else. But it is not Edward tonight. He is going tomorrow. So before you make your plan, well, I guess that game's already happening. So never mind on that. But Eddie tomorrow.
So Eddie tomorrow. Jordan Holloway is going tonight in Jacksonville. And then the other injury update we got was Sixto Sanchez. Once again, I thought that he was going to be able to pick up where he left off. That's what the Marlins told us. But he is back to throwing at 65 feet. So he's got to kind of go back to the beginning a little bit, or 60 feet. So here we go again with Sixto. We'll see.
He'll pitch in September.
I don't know. Maybe he'll pitch maybe August, maybe by the All-Star break. That's kind of when Kim Ng kind of hinted at. We'll see. But he is throwing again, so at least he got past that little minor setback that he had. I guess, one thing I did want to talk about before we go into minor league stuff, because I want to get you on this, Alex, is you mentioned Duvall, Isaac, or not Duvall, Alfaro. Alfaro does anybody on the team hit the ball harder than this guy? He puts up exit velocities that are in the 110s, time after time after time. And then finally, the Marlins have a catcher at league average hitting value. This guy finally got to 100 weighted runs created plus after a 3-hit night last night. He's hitting 263, 317 OBP. His slugging is only 382, so you would expect that to go up. Yeah. So if this guy stays consistent, his strikeout rate is actually down 5.5% from this point, from last year at this point. He was hurt, so he's only played in 24 games. It's a fairly small sample size, but 100 weighted runs created plus and a positive WAR. We talked so much about the catcher position and how much the Marlins struggle with the catcher position, and to have a league average catcher, a league average offensive player back there right now, especially with what you normally get from catcher, how much could that mean to the Marlins if this guy stays hitting even average like he's hitting right now?
Let me tell you, man, that would do wonders for this lineup, for this offense-hungry lineup. And like you said, he has a OPS plus, I believe, with 94. He's just about league average. He's having that typical Alfaro at his peak slash, 260 average. He'll hit for a little more power than he has, obviously. But just like before his first IL stint, I mentioned this last time, he was hitting the ball very well against the Giants. And that's when the Marlins offense was, they were playing a little bit well. They were. So if Alfaro can stay this way, the way he played in 2019 with, like you said, a strikeout rate that's, decreasing, that is a huge, huge thing for this lineup that, they really sorely miss. It's not Chad Wallach and Sandy Leon splitting time anymore. Alfaro, if he could put up anything above 250, any OPS above 700, it'd be a huge addition for this. Hit 8th and he's fine.
Yeah, so it's if you look at the stats, it's exactly the guy he was in 2019. Actually, if you go back to his stats,
right?
I mean, just look at it. 364 BABIP, 262 average. Now he's at 367 BABIP, 263 average. What's come down a little bit that you don't like to see is the walks. He's a walk lower in walk percentage. So the question is it sustainable? Is a 367 BABIP sustainable when you're playing in, in this division? That's a great question. I would tend to just based off of his streakiness, I would tend to go to the side of no, that BABIP will come down, as will his batting average. But you love to see what he's doing right now, and he did do the same exact thing in 2019. So maybe that's just the guy he is, a little bit higher BABIP, average a little lower, walk rate really low. That's what you don't like to see. But as you said, Ethan, hitting the ball hard, been good. Hope he can keep it up. But he's been really streaky in his career. So.
And the thing is, if the batting average comes down, at some point the power has to go up, especially if he keeps hitting the ball hard. So he's going to slug more than three. What is he slugging right now? 382. He's
take the
going to
slug factor into account too on that.
Yeah,
so.
He's probably going to be a guy that slugs over 400. You would like to see that walk rate higher than 3.7, but right now the strikeout percentage is at 30.5. If he can get that under 30, if he can start getting down towards 28, this can be a pretty productive hitter. And boy, could the Marlins use that. Eli, I see you in here.
I'm popping in most importantly to wish Jorge a happy birthday. It is his 28th birthday, right in the middle of his prime, even for a catcher. Catcher ages a little bit more than other positions, but still he could even get better from here if he has the right approach. That's the most important thing. And also defensively, I noticed nobody has stolen a base against him since he came back from the IL. Only one attempt. I know probably more of that is on the pitchers than on the catchers, but that was like the confusing thing about Wallach earlier this year, that Wallach, for whatever reason, opponents had some scouting report on him that they were fearless, like stealing against them. And they were almost 100% successful against Wallach. And the fact that Alfaro was in there and seems to be deterring people from going, that shouldn't be overlooked. That adds up as well.
Yeah, he definitely, his defense contributes to his value, and he is a positive WAR player right now. He's an above replacement level player, and that's way more than what you could say about what the Marlins were getting from the catcher position when he was on the IL. So his presence has certainly been huge. All right, Alex, let's get into the minor league stuff. I have a couple guys, a few things I want to ask you about, and then I'll let you just kind of go off on whatever you want to talk about. But the first one is Yuri Perez. So since the last time that we talked, he had an outing where he got 8 strikeouts in 4 innings, I believe. He's back from the IL, if I'm correct. And what do you know about this guy? And he's obviously far away. I think he's only 18 years old, right? But he's a stud, is he not? He looks like he could really, be one of these signings down the road that could contribute to this rotation.
Yeah, we talk about Yuri a lot on Fish on the Farm because Daniel is in love with the guy, and for good reason. I mean, I can't blame him at all. Dude is massive, is the biggest thing you see with him. He's like 6'9". He's a little lanky, but I think he's going to put on more weight as he grows. As you said, he just turned 18. He's the youngest player in minor league baseball, and he's being challenged to full season ball. And he's doing well, man. He was never hurt, so he was never on the IL. They're just really managing his innings. That's why you see some of his starts, he goes like 2 innings. Another start, he'll go like 4 innings. I think it's more in terms of a pitch count, which is what I think it should be. But it looks like the organization is going innings limit on some of these younger guys, not just him. You'll see it with Meyer. You'll see it with McCambly, all the guys out of that 2020 draft. And then especially the younger kids at the bottom, you'll see it. Stuff-wise, really good, man. He's up to 97. He can throw the fastball 2 different ways. Really good diving changeup. Spin rates are absolutely incredible. I love that Baseball Savant has, or Statcast, I should say, has these
the Jupiter games. It's awesome.
Played in the old Florida State League, like the spring training park, St. Lucie, Jupiter. They'll have the stack. You have to kind of dig for it, but the Statcast information will be available, so you can kind of look at how he's. I mean, if you look at those numbers and look at his spin rates, it's ridiculous. So, man, really good. The only thing I think he needs to fix before we go too long, he will speed up and slow down his effort based on which pitch he's throwing. And at the higher levels, guys will pick that up. Yeah, so like you said, tons of time. He's 18 years old, the youngest player in minor league ball. Off to a great start, dude. So we'll see how he polishes off. But, man, already ahead of the game. And
then the next one I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned 2020 draft picks. And, I mean, has there been anybody in the minor league system better than these two 2020 draft picks? And maybe even a third if you want to talk about McCambly. But the two guys I'm going to ask you about are Max Meyer and Jake Eder. They lead the Pensacola rotation. Eder, nobody expected him to be in Double-A. We all knew that Max Meyer was going to be. But not only has he been in Double-A, he has been holding his own and more. He pitched 5 perfect innings his last time out in front of the Marlins brass. Shout out Pete in the chat. Go 3 Lions in the year of 2020 that's going on right now. But anyway, with Max and Jake, just what we know about the wipeout slider with Max, but with Jake, we don't really know as much about the arsenal. So talk to us a little bit about that, and then also. They're going to spend the year down there. Kim Ang pretty much said that when we talked to her the other day. So they're going to spend the whole year in Double-A, or they might move up, but they're going to spend the year in the minor leagues. So what are you looking for them from their development? After a really great month to start off the year.
Man, I think it's just more of the same. More of the same of exactly what they've been doing. You mentioned Meyer's slider, and it is great. Honestly, I think Eder's is better. That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to say Jake Eder has the best pitch in the minor league system in his slider over Max Meyer, over McCambly's curveball, other pitches that we see. Yuri Perez is really good changeup, but I think that Eder has the best pitch in the organization with his slider. So yeah, what do I want to see out of them? More of the same. Jake Eder ERA is like 0.6. He's given up like 1 run on a solo homer. So it's a guy that's not doing much wrong, man. I mean, velo's good. He repeats. Mechanics are all there. He looks like a major league pitcher right now. Both Meyer and Eder they just look the part. When you look at a prospect, you can just say, okay, this guy is going to be a major league player. Absolutely 100% there for both of them. And yeah, I just want to see it more of the same. Will they hit their hiccups as they grow? Probably. You'll probably see it. But the great thing is with the stuff that they have, they can miss a spot or maybe even signal to the catcher, hey, I'm throwing this pitch, and I don't even think guys would still be able to touch it. That's how good their stuff is. So yeah just keep going for them.
Yeah, Isaac. If Eder's slider is really as good as you're saying it is, and that was the best pitch in the draft was Max Meyer's slider, and you add the thing about his changeup too. Both of them have looked phenomenal. I watch every Double-A game that I can, and they really do look fantastic. And I haven't noticed the Eder slider as well, but wow, that's scary to think about how much pitching this organization has.
Yeah,
Isaac, I want to go ahead. Just to end real quick, you bring up a good point on changeups. I think they both have one for sure. I think Eder maybe a little less than Max. Changeup development, but that's something this organization has had no problem with. We know that. Braxton Garrett, who has a good changeup now, Trevor Rogers, who has a great changeup now, helped Pablo out a little bit with his. So yeah, I mean, it's just an organization that's great at developing that pitch. So no worries on that. And they already have a pretty good. They're already both of their changeups are at least average, if not a little bit better. So yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, Isaac, I wanted to go to you on this, just about these two guys from an organizational perspective. And you mentioned changeups. This organization has showed they're very capable of developing really good changeups. Yeah. Trevor, Pablo, Sandy. Look at what they did with Trevor Richards when he was around here in his changeup. So they can add that changeup for sure to Max Meyer and Jake Eder. So just overall, Isaac, when you look at this, it's like, how do they fit 5? How do they pick 5, right?
It really is. I have like a spreadsheet, of all the starting pitchers. You have Kyle Nicholas as well. You have Zach McCambly. You have Edward Cabrera, Max Meyer, all these lefties. Braxton Garrett was a higher draft pick than Trevor Rogers. Obviously, I don't think Braxton Garrett's going to be, nearly as good. But all these pitches, you're able to throw in a deceptive, solid changeup to all of these repertoires that all these pitchers have, this crazy stuff that they have, Edward Cabrera stuff, Max Meyer stuff. You add an above-average changeup, at the very least, they go from a 2-pitch, 3-pitch good pitcher to an excellent pitcher like Sandy has. Sandy, I think that's as part of like, I didn't think he was going to have this good of a year that he's having. And Pablo, they're having phenomenal years, mainly because of that changeup that this organization's helping them, conquer.
Yeah.
Which is good.
All right. The next topic and final topic I wanted to go to about the minors is the two guys staying in Pensacola on the offensive side of the ball, that probably the two guys that Marlins fans are most excited about and want to hear about the most. So let's talk about them. And there's been plenty to talk about recently, and that's JJ Bleday and Peyton Burdick. Bleday finally getting going. He hit another home run last night. Am I right?
Yeah.
And he's got something like 4 in his last 6 games, I want to say. And he's really hot. I think he's got the OPS up around 700 finally. So we knew he was going to hit. Obviously when guys have bad starts to the year, it's magnified. It's under more of a scope. And I asked Kim Ang about it, and because she had just been up there, and she said that, a hitter like JJ Bleday, I'm not worried about that guy. He's going to get going, and guys go through slumps. They just happen to go through it at the beginning of the year. And then Burdick, his OPS is up near 800 because even though he hasn't been hitting for a high average, he's been hitting for a ton of power, as we know he's capable of. And both guys have shown pretty good plate discipline. I mean, they've been striking out a bunch, but Bleday has been taking his walks. The other night I saw his line. I think it was the night I was at the Marlins game. He was 2 for 2 with 2 walks. So he was not retired in that game. So the kid's been fantastic recently. So Isaac, I'll go to you first. Just these two kids, what do you like about them? And then, from the organizational perspective, you're looking at, these are two guys that, we can talk all about Starling Marte and whether he'll be anchoring the outfield next year. But, you want to put these either guys on either side of a center fielder. That's a really good pairing in the corners.
Yeah, like you said, put them in right and left field respectively. Both of them could play center field. They've both been playing some center field in the minor leagues this season. You look past the batting average, both of them aren't pretty. JJ's right under 200. But then you look at the OBP. His OBP is well over, 300. It's at 324. His slugging, not slugging as much as he would tell you he wants himself doing. Same with Burdick. He's been hitting for a ton of power, which is huge, for him. And I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's going to hit 300. Burdick, let's be honest.
No.
I know he had a great year in 2019, I think it was. And, it's great. But I think if he could just hit for a little power, have some good play discipline. Same with Bleday. Hopefully he'll be one that hits for a higher average Bleday. But I think those are both some solid corner outfield options that'll be up. Maybe a shot in September, possibly. But, yeah, I look forward to seeing them play a little bit against some major league competition sooner rather than later for sure. If they continue playing well, because they were struggling a bit.
Alex, what do you got for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Kim said. I mean, you saw people on Twitter. Oh, what's wrong with JJ? Oh, what's wrong with Burdick? Why aren't they hitting 400, 500 to start the season? The answer to that question that I had was just relax. I mean, these guys are playing at a brand new level, right? Both well up from where they were playing. Obviously JJ was playing a little bit higher than Burdick. JJ was playing with the Hammerheads, but just had come out that in 2019, right? So. They're both being pushed and challenged to a much higher level, and it's a AA level, which is one of the toughest jumps to make from any level of the system. So, yeah, I mean, it's just two guys that were gaining their footing to start the season. Bleday a little bit longer than Burdick. Burdick kind of got to swing a little bit more before Bleday, which is why you see his numbers popping a little bit better. But, yeah, they were just getting their feet wet, getting their timing down to start early, and now you see all their tools on display, man. And it's just it's the main two to keep your eye on on that Pensacola team. But the one guy, I'll just throw it out really quick. I know you didn't ask about this, but I just want to throw the name out to make sure people look at him, is Nick Fortes. Because Nick Fortes is going off, and I did not predict this whatsoever, and it's a catcher. So if the Marlins, as good as Alfaro is doing, have a catcher at the AA level that's hitting, well, let's look at the numbers. 284, 343, 420. Before last night, he had a 14-game on-base streak. He's got 7 doubles as a homer. So, man, I mean, that's great for an organization that's so light at catcher to see a guy doing that basically out of nowhere. He was a defensive guy. That hadn't really come around yet. And now here's the bat, man, at the AA level. It's great to see.
I have started taking note of Fortes a little bit, and he actually wasn't terrible. He was a 2019 pick, and he wasn't terrible when he came out that year. And so I knew the name, and then this year I kind of started taking note of how well he's been playing, especially recently. And you mentioned it briefly, but this system is so thin on catchers. We know that there's nothing behind, which is why it's become so important for Alfaro to get going. And it's good to see him finally doing that because they're so behind, in catcher. But yeah, Fortes, all of a sudden kind of making a name for himself and saying, look, I'm here too. I can play, I can catch and I can hit. So that's certainly a welcome sign for the Marlins, is a guy that, hitting from that position. Just to sum up on Blade and Burdick before we get back up to the big club, just taking a look at these numbers, Blade is only hitting 197. He's got a 708 OPS and 102 weighted runs created plus. But look at these plate discipline statistics. He's got a 15.8 walk percentage and a 25.2 K percentage. And his K percentage a couple weeks ago was up damn near 36 or something. So his K percentage in the past few weeks has dropped 11, almost 10%.
Yeah.
And then you look at Burdick, going over to him, he's always going to have a ton of strikeout in his game. I think that's just what he is. He's a power guy. He's the modern age hitter where he's going to strike out a bunch, but he's taking a walk 14.5% of the time. That's huge for him. 30.3 strikeout rate. He's only hitting 195 as well, but he has a 773 OPS, 114 weighted runs created plus. He's slugging 455. So you just see where Burdick is beating out Blade right now is the power. Blade kind of had a power outage at the beginning of the year, starting to hit the ball more, starting to make some better contact, higher quality contact. And my favorite stat that I've used all year when talking about JJ Blade is that among Marlins players who played in spring training that played like in 15 games or more or something, he had the third highest OPS. That included all the major league guys. So he was great. He had a great spring. And he just showed that the type of quality hitter that he can be. And there's no doubt that this guy is going to hit. He's going to get going. And it's nice to see him finally getting going, certainly. And then a guy that I really am rooting for so much after we interviewed him is Zach McCambley. And he's been great this year as well. So a lot of good stuff going on the farm, certainly pitching, hitting. But some good stuff going on in the major league level as well as we transition back there now. Because we've got only about 10 or so minutes left here before game one of Braves and Marlins start. Let's take a look at the pitching matchup for tonight. Sandy Alcantara and Charlie F. and Morton. Sandy, we know he's been fantastic. He was fantastic again last time out. He was lights out. And then Morton, it's kind of been, you said they're 4-1 in his last 5 starts, Isaac, but it's been a bit of an up and down year for him. So the Marlins, with probably a bullpen game tomorrow, they need Sandy to go deep tonight, don't they?
This is as close to a must win on June 11th, that you can have. They fare very well with Charlie Morton. They crushed him in Atlanta. In that game, Jazz Chisholm had a great game. You have Sandy Alcantara coming off 8 innings, no runs against Pittsburgh. He's going to be a little more amped up against Atlanta, with Acuna, who cranked him and then he cranked him back. It's going to be definitely interesting to see. But this is definitely the must-win tomorrow. I'm going to the game tomorrow. So tomorrow's the game that, I don't have the most high hopes for, but today is definitely the one that you got to secure without a doubt.
Yeah, I'll be at that game tomorrow as well. I'll be up in the box. Just the numbers on Charlie Morton this year. He's got a 4.21 ERA. He has a 1.1 WAR this year, but 10.45 K per 9. So he's still racking up the strikeouts. He's fucking 37 years old. Sorry, Grandma, if you're watching. Sorry, Lolo, if you're watching. But his K percentage is up at 27.2. It's much higher than last year, nearly like 2.5 points higher than last year. Walking guys a little more, but this is a guy that the Marlins can certainly get to. We talked about how they got to him last time. And you take a look at it, and it's just the Marlins overall. I talked about earlier the pitching staffs for the Braves. They're not very good. Their pitching hasn't been very good this year. Just to be honest, 4.37 team ERA. You would expect that the Braves would be better. And I think part of that is that they're missing Soroka. Mike Soroka has been down. He tore his Achilles last year, and he hasn't been able to make it back so far this year. But Morton, Fried, and then you talked about Smiley and how he's basically just an innings eater because they lost Inoa. And Fried has been pretty up and down. So the Marlins do have a chance to take advantage of a couple big names, but that haven't really been performing that well this year. And we know that the lineup is really on fire right now. I mean, the lineup, coming off a great series. So Eli, I see you popping in here. You have something to chime in?
Well, no, I'll just chill for the rest of this episode. I felt we needed more than two boxes on the screen at the same time. On your point, we're probably going to put up an article this weekend about the NL East all injured team, all the guys in the division that are missing time, because of course in the Marlins bubble, people they're annoyed, freaked out, all the players that the team is missing, and both the rotation and on that left side of the infield. But I mean, the Braves are probably just as worse off. I mean, it's not just Ozuna, but the guys you mentioned, Soroka and Inoa. Those guys, Soroka and Inoa, are of the same caliber as Sixto and Eliezer. It's really a pretty even example of a team that is just as affected as the Marlins, and a team that is probably underachieving even more than the Marlins are to this point. I mean, because you talked about it earlier in the show, how I think more than a few people thought the Braves would be the team to beat in this division still, just based on what they've done the past few years. And for that reason, they are pretty vulnerable right now. They're really not that much better than the Marlins are at this point. So it's fun. It's a fun series, as it always is. But yeah, frankly, the actual talent on the field in this series isn't quite what you would be expecting, coming into the year.
No, it's definitely depleted. And when you look at this, I'm looking at the Braves injury report right now. You've got Inoa on the 60-day IL, Darno on the 60-day IL, Alex Jackson on the 10-day IL, Marcell Ozuna on the 10-day IL, and on the keep him away from baseball list right now because of we can. That is a whole nother story that we can't go into here really. And then Soroka on the 60-day IL. So you have not just injuries, but long-term injuries. And Darno, who was one of their best hitters last year, and two starters. And Soroka's probably their ace. So, yeah, they're dealing with the injuries just as much as the Marlins. The only difference is the Marlins have their 1-2-3. And thank God this 1-2-3 has stayed healthy, because if it hasn't, it could have been disaster for the Marlins by this point. With the way that the pitching has been depleted, from not just Eliezer and Sixto and Poteet. You go down the line, and Garrett hasn't really performed. Neidert hadn't performed, and then he got hurt. Jordan Holloway got hurt. He's working his way back, thank goodness, because he could certainly fill one of these holes, but it's not like he was great when he was starting. He was really good out of the pen, but it's not like he was great when he was starting. So anyway, it definitely is a depleted Braves roster, but you still got Acuna, you still got Freddie, and you still have Albies. And Austin Riley you can throw in there as well too, who's a great
Swanson
player.
Swanson has played a little bit.
Yep, and Swanson, Dansby Swanson as well. And you know how it is when the Braves come to town. They're always a challenge. It's always a challenge for the Marlins, but the Marlins always seem to kind of rise to the occasion, especially recently. And I mentioned that they took 3 of 4 from Atlanta last time, so they've got 2 of 3 here. And with about 10 minutes to go, I'm kind of running out of. We pretty much checked off all the boxes that I had to talk about. So we'll just go right into it. Isaac, when you look at these matchups, you look at what the Marlins have, what do you see happening in the series? What do you see transpiring? I don't know if you're into a prediction guy. I saw our buddy Kevin, who couldn't make it to the stream tonight, said the Marlins will take 2 of 3. He's always the prediction master.
Ethan, let me jump in, because Kevin is so devoted to the segment that he gave me a long written explanation about his prediction. So I'm going to read it word for word what Kevin said. Quote, the Marlins tend to play better against teams in the NL East for some reason, so they win the first one, lose the second one, and they will win the third one with Pablo on the mound. Marlins take 2 of 3 in this series, which is a season-altering series, Kevin says. Season-altering, in his opinion. They need moments from guys like Jesus Aguilar, Starling Marte, and the bullpen for sure, end quote.
No,
You know
it's true. Everything he said there is true. The Marlins, they've had them recently, but if they're going to take 2 of 3 from the Braves, they're going to need Marte to show up. They're going to need Jazz to do something big. They're going to need uh, Aguilar to show up because he's been great recently. They're going to need to get all 3 of those guys going. And then they do have the advantage in 2 of these 3 pitching matchups and then, the bullpen game tomorrow. So I can definitely see it going that way. What do you think, Isaac?
I could not agree more. I was thinking the same thing coming into the stream, that this, just like that New York series with the red jerseys, it could be like a season. If you win 2 out of 3, if you even sweep the Braves, you go in, like, that's a big momentum builder for sure. So I definitely think you win tonight. It's a must win.
Yeah.
You win on Sunday. Those Sunday day games where we have either Pablo or Sandy pitching, they always go our way. I don't know why, but they always do.
They do seem to go our way. Yeah.
Always. Sandy always pitches a complete game on Sunday afternoons. But yeah, tomorrow's gonna be tough. But I think somehow, I don't know if you guys remember that Saturday game in 2019 where it was a huge comeback. Starlin Castro had the game tying double and Isan was thrown out at the plate. They might have a crazy game like that on Saturday. Who knows who's going to pitch? It might be a bullpen day, but I think they might be able to sweep this series. I really do.
Well, you talk about season altering, and I guess I'll go into this previewing just something that we have coming up, which is, Craig Mish talked about the Starling Marte, the extension scenario, and we're going to have a podcast on Fish Stripes coming up for this. I think we're releasing that on Monday, right, Eli?
Yep, first thing Monday morning.
That'll be released on Monday. So, Mish today on the podcast, on his Swings and Mishes podcast, talked about he doesn't see this organization, this regime, as a regime that's gonna just mail it. They're not gonna give up on it. If they see a chance to get into it, they're gonna get into it. And he doesn't see them kind of abandoning ship. Jumping ship is the saying I was looking for. So he doesn't see them doing that. Derek Jeter is never going to miss an opportunity to try and win. Yeah. That's 100% true. So
that's what he was telling me yesterday or a couple days ago in the press box, that even this team could be 30 games under 500, and they are not, which could be a bad thing, could end up being a bad thing. But like you said, they are going to try and win. So
they're not going to abandon ship. And what better way to show that they shouldn't abandon ship than a season-altering series, like Kevin said? I think that's a good way to put it. It might not propel them into the playoffs, but it might make them more of what we thought, more of this respectable club that can take challenge. They're going to fight in every game. We know that for sure. They're going to play hard in every game. And so if they can take 2 or 3 from the Braves, I think it can jumpstart them a little bit into being more like the team that we expected, especially as Miggy Rowe is looming. He's taking BP. He's looming a little bit. And then we'll see with the pitching injuries. But yes, this could definitely be a momentum builder for the Marlins. And then after this, they go to St. Louis, and then they go to Chicago, and I'll be in Chicago. And those are 2 tough matchups. So you got to get a couple wins here while you can, and you've got 2 of your 3 guys going. So I'm certainly very excited for this one. Alcantara and Morton tonight. TBA, we don't know who's going against Fried tomorrow, and then Lopez and Smiley on Sunday. I'll be there tomorrow. For Isaac, for Eli, for Alex Carver earlier, I'm Ethan Medowski. Enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the series. And as always, go Fish.